Hi, I'm Neil Beck. I was a doctor in Perth, Western Australia for 53 years. First of all, working in hospitals, then for many years a suburban general practitioner, doing all the things that GPs did in those days, which are seldom done now, because we didn't have a medical school and so we were short of doctors and short of specialists. So I helped to bring 800 babies into the world and did a lot of tonsillectomies and appendicectomies and vasectomies and broken bones and cuts and other things, pneumonia. Then ended up like a more modern general practitioner, mostly consultations in the surgery, home and hospital visits, 500,000 altogether. And we had a big epidemic of heroin addiction in the late 1990s, and I thought I'd better learn about heroin addiction, and I started to work 10 hours a week in a heroin addiction clinic. But the results were so bad that I started my own clinic. One day in that clinic I saw 15 heroin addicts, and 5 of them had attention deficit disorder, which was not diagnosed and not treated. And then when I observed all the new addiction patients carefully, I found that 95% of them had a mental health disorder, or usually 2 or 3 disorders. Worry, anxiety disorders, sleep disorders, major depression, bipolar disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, what I called IAD, irritability, anger, violence disorder, which didn't seem to have a name, so I thought I'd better give it a name. And then also PTEF, which didn't have a name, which was post-traumatic evil focus. A lot of people who had terrible things happen to them that they couldn't cope with, couldn't face, diverted their attention and got a bit of relief by focusing on the terrible things that were happening far away, like in Guantanamo Bay or with the CIA or with conspiracy theories. And then there were people very low self-esteem. They'd been born in very poor circumstances, poor families, poor homes, poor districts, difficult schools, and they had very low self-esteem, which dragged them down. And then there was schizophrenia and autism. So what I found was that all these people needed dual diagnosis treatment. Dual diagnosis treatment is diagnosing and treating the mental health conditions at the same time as treating the addictions. If you didn't find and treat the cause of the addiction, it was very hard to get people off their addiction. And if you managed to get them off it, they were very likely to relapse if the cause was still there. So dual diagnosis was absolutely essential. I couldn't find anyone else in Australia doing it at that time. I'm very happy to say now a lot of clinics are doing dual diagnosis, and it's just almost a waste of time trying to treat addicts without doing dual diagnosis. So although I was just a GP and had very basic training in mental health, as a medical student my training in mental health was 8 one-hour lectures and 2 visits to mental health hospitals. Not a lot of training. But of course there was a great shortage of psychiatrists and psychologists, and they were expensive, so we GPs had to do the best we could. And then with all this experience with 5,000 addicts, I learned a lot of mental health. And what became clear to me was that I believe mental health disorders are our world's greatest problem. Almost every other problem arises from mental ill health. To have a good life, there's nothing more important than to be mentally healthy. The second most important thing is to have good relationships, and that depended a lot on having good mental health. The other thing that was very clear to me was that most people with mental health problems were getting no treatment, no specialist treatment, just pretty amateurish treatment from us GPs who weren't properly trained to do that. And almost no one seemed to be getting enough mental health care, and there were such long waiting lists that it appeared to me that there was never going to be enough mental health care workers to help all the people that needed mental health care. And as this was, in my opinion, the greatest problem that humans had, I became very interested in it. What I think the main reason why there was never going to be enough mental health care was that the tools that mental health carers had, there were only two, and they both had big problems. The first tool was medicines, but so many medicines were addictive. People who needed medicine wanted to get better quickly and stop taking it, but the people who make medicine wanted them to stay on medicine as long as possible, as much as possible, so they made a lot of medicines addictive. All the worry, anxiety and sleep medicines, and the three main ADD, ADHD medicines, all addictive. And the medicines were too slow. They nearly all came as capsules or tablets, and when you swallow a tablet or a capsule, it takes half an hour to an hour to go right down your gut and start to be absorbed into the bloodstream and start to go to where it's needed and start to help you. Half an hour to an hour to start to help you, and 1 to 2 hours before it's working strongly. Just too slow when someone is having an episode of general anxiety or social anxiety or panic attacks or obsessive compulsive disease or a problem with a phobia. Just too slow. And the other tool was talk therapy, counselling, psychotherapy, CBT, call it what you like, basically talk therapy. And talk therapy had two big weaknesses. First, it's too slow. When you see a new patient with a mental health problem, you need an hour to go through all the history, how it started, what probably caused it, what's keeping it going, what's made it worse, because we usually saw people when they had their problems for many years, and over the years the problems got worse and worse and more complicated. So talk therapy was just too slow. An hour the first time, which we didn't have, and then half an hour, 3/4 of an hour every week for weeks or months. Just too slow and too expensive. To be a therapist, all therapists had to have at least a 4-year Bachelor of Psychology from a university, and a lot of psychologists had 6 and 7 year PhD degrees, and to be a psychiatrist you had to have a 6-year general medical degree, some general medical experience, and then a 3, 4 or 5 year postgraduate training in psychiatry. So 10 or 12 years to become a psychiatrist. So those people, the therapists, whether psychologists, psychiatrists or whatever, were intelligent people who'd undertaken long training courses and needed to be paid well and deserved to be paid well, and if we didn't pay them well we'd be even shorter of them because they might do engineering or something else. And the other major reason why the treatment was ineffective, so slow, so there were waiting lists everywhere, and one person in a family with serious mental health problems upset the rest of the family. In fact, mental health problems were nearly always family problems. But mental health care had a lot of blind spots, and one of them, for instance, was that we treated people as individually and as individuals, as if they were solo, and ignored their family problems. Very hard to get a person better and for them to avoid relapsing if the family problem it just remains the same. So about 7 major blind areas made mental health care treatment ineffective. So people had to be treated for years and years and years, and many of them never got properly better, and that just created waiting lists, and on the long waiting lists people got worse. One problem led to another problem to another problem. Their attention deficit disorder gave them a disturbed childhood. They developed anxiety and depression and behaviour problems. They did badly at school and got a poor education, and then often left school early and got poor employment and had money worries. So what I want to do now is to read a whole lot of items which I think are very important in mental health. I've got about 90 under a minute mental health videos and 31 7 to 12 minute videos, so I think there's somewhere between 50 and 100 major mental health factors which I want to cover all eventually, but I've just started to do this a few days ago for another project which I hope will be very helpful, and so far I'm only up to about 34 problems. So what are they? The first is that there are no perfect mothers, no perfect fathers, no perfect families, no perfect homes or neighbourhoods or schools. So every child suffers, and every child has some mental health damage, and the earlier that damage gets fixed, the better their life is going to be, and the less troubled their children are going to be, because troubled parents have troubled children. So the first thing is that we need to try to help every child and every person to get over their mental health issues as early as possible. For health and happiness, develop a good sleep habit. Sleep is a necessity. Good sleep is a necessity, not a luxury. Understand and fix worry, anxiety, fear. General social and separation anxiety, panic attacks, obsessive compulsive disorder and phobias are major mental health disorders. Understand and fix major depression and bipolar manic depressive disorder. We often just go on treating people's addiction or bipolar for years and years and years and never look for or discover the cause. Oh, we think that was a long time ago. How do we know about that? Well, I can tell you, I just recently discovered the cause of a lot of the mental health problems in my family by doing a ChatGPT search going back to my great-grandmother. One of my great-grandmothers had 9 children, starting at 16. At 16 she had her first son, and she had 4 sons in 6 years, and then at 24 had a daughter and then another daughter, and she was married twice, and 2 of the children were to between her 2 marriages to a boyfriend that she wasn't married to. And then she died at 42 from cancer. From all the stress she had depressed her immune system, and she got cancer and died at 42. And that deeply affected my grandmother, who was her first daughter, born when she was 24. And my grandmother would have been a second mother to all those children. When my grandmother was 6 and her mother married for the second time, her mother had 2 babies in 10 months. I'm not sure where all the sons were at that time, but a lot of work, and my grandmother was affected by it. And my grandmother was a very hard lady, but and she treated me very badly, which affected me badly, but her children totally changed the picture. She had 4 children. Her oldest was one of the nicest people I ever knew, an uncle who was an accountant. And her second child was my mother, who is a poor country girl with parents that never owned their own home and never had a motor vehicle. She got on the train when she was 12 and came to the Big Smoke and finished up being the head girl and the Ducks of the top high school in Western Australia, and the champion tennis and hockey player. So my grandmother's children just totally changed the trajectory of that family. Fix focusing, concentration, impulsiveness and hyperactivity, which are all features of ADD, ADHD, but can occur in other situations as well. But you're not going to have a good life if you're very poor at focusing and concentrating, and you're impulsive because you make lots of bad decisions, and it's hard to have a good relationship with those problems, and the hyperactivity gets you into trouble, and the impulsivity makes you a sitting duck for people pushing heroin or cocaine or ecstasy or whatever. Understand and fix post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. It's a severe generalized body reactions, sweating, shaking, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, due to a near-death, a terrible near-death experience that you experience yourself, or that you are very close to someone going through that experience. And most people gradually get over such a shock, but some people, their body just keeps on having that reaction, and they never know when it's going to happen. Suddenly they go through that whole reaction again. It's not just a bad memory, it's the bodily shakes and sweats and nausea, the whole works. And that drives a lot of people to alcoholism or to heroin, or and to unemployment. It's said that in some parts of America, every seat in a public park is occupied by an ex-soldier from Vietnam or some other, Afghanistan or wherever, suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. And understand and fix post-traumatic evil focus disorder, which I called PTF. Trying to block out terrible personal problems like childhood sexual abuse, a death of a very important, very close person, bankruptcy, losing your home, terrible car accidents, trying to block those things out by thinking about the terrible things happening in Guantanamo Bay, or the terrible things the CIA are doing, or the terrible things that conspiracy theories, is not a good strategy, because you end up that most of the people you're in contact with are all suffering from PTF, post-traumatic evil focus, and it's a very miserable life, and you never fix your own personal problem. Much better strategy is, if you suffer from a terrible problem that you can't face, you are bound to have smaller problems that you can face. So find the smaller problems and fix them one after the other. You might have a problem which is only 10% of your problem, but it's still a problem to you. And if you can face that small problem, find the cause, fix it, you'll feel better, you'll feel stronger, you'll feel happier, and you'll be a better problem solver. And then you can solve the problem that's 15% of your problem, and then the problem that's 20% of your problem. And by that time, you'll be feeling strong enough and happy enough, and be a sufficiently improved problem solver, and know people who can help you to problem solve, that you can tackle the big one and fix the big one. Cut schizophrenia, distress and domination by focusing on getting things we all need: good friends, things you love doing, places you love going to. Schizophrenia is big and it's nasty, and it scares the shit out of everyone, and they focus on it and they neglect other very important things. Well, if you've got schizophrenia, you need friends. You need things you love doing. You need things, places you love going to. But those things often are just ignored. And you're trying to live with schizophrenia without all these other things that we all need. So go for it. Concentrate on getting some friends, even if they've got schizophrenia or something else. You've got to have friends. You need things to do that you love doing, that give you satisfaction and a sense of value, and you need to have places you love to go that you can visit. And another distraction is our 8th tool. This is a pocket powder dispenser, but it's not powder medicine, it's fruit powder. And if you've got this in your pocket, my favorite fruit powder is vanilla, and wherever I am, whatever I'm doing, if I have a nasty thought or I just feel like I like something, I whiz it out, tap, tap. Got lovely vanilla powder on my tongue and it stops me thinking about the bad stuff. Learn to keep your 25 feel-good chemicals strong. Yes, we've got about 25 feel-good chemicals in us that are what make us smile and happy and sometimes laugh and confident and easy to get on with. So learn about your feel-good chemicals and learn to keep them strong. Do a ChatGPT search or a Google search, or watch our videos. There's over 20 endorphins. Endorphins are endogenous morphines. Yes, we produce morphine chemicals in ourselves, over 20 of them, and they help to stop pain and to stop stress and to make us feel good. And you want to have your endorphins high. My great-grandmother, who died at 42 of cancer after having 9 children with 3 different men, would have had very depressed immune system because her endorphins were very depressed by all that stress. If I could have treated her and got her to do the things you need to do to boost your immune system, then she wouldn't have got cancer. The other chemicals apart from the endorphins are dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin and noradrenaline. You need to know about your happy chemistry and you need to keep them high so that you feel good, and they also boost your immune system so you don't get sick. Your immune system fights infections, allergies, inflammation, autoimmune diseases and cancers. And we knew for a long time that our feel-good chemistry makes us feel good, but now we know that smiling and laughing increase our brain's production of feel-good, happy, healthy chemistry. So you can boost your feel-good chemistry by smiling or laughing. And one of the most important things I think you can do is learn to be a smiler. The smilers have a lot more happiness and live healthy much longer than the people who are always frowning and never smiling. I've got a video on the smiling habit. Get energized and positive every morning with an enjoyable 10 to 30 minute habitual routine. Sometimes we wake up in the morning and we feel bad. Our mood is low, our energy is low, our motivation is low, and we're going to have a bad day. Well, you can turn all that around by developing a couple of positive morning habits. My habits are always a few minutes of favourite music, nearly always The Voice Kids or Britain's Got Talent or America's Got Talent or there's a couple of other places. Germany's Got Talent is a pretty good. The other ones, what the other ones? One's a South American one, one's a small European one. But music, 5 or 10 minutes of lovely music on my laptop, not quite as good on my phone, does wonders for me, or at the same time looking at photos or 1 minute videos of people I love or things I find interesting, and then a few minutes exercise on my cross trainer, which exercises my arms and legs and spine and heart and lungs all at once. 5 or 10 minutes sounds like nothing, but that can just get you all going. So positive every morning habits, and learn about habits. Habits are so important. Do you know that between 60 and 65% of our life is habits? That includes sleep, which of course is about 1/3 of our life. But our brain is so busy, it can't manage everything consciously, and anything that we do over and over and over the same, it turns into a habit. It makes the triggers and the electrical messages and the chemical messages strong, so they start to happen almost automatically without us thinking or having to put any effort into it. When you first drive a car, you have to think about everything. When you've been driving a car for 20 years, you can drive 100 miles and not think once about putting your foot on the brake or the accelerator or turning the steering wheel. It's a habit. And 60 to 65% of our life is habits. But the catch is that anything we do, whether it's helpful or harmful, or was helpful and is now harmful, becomes a habit. So a lot of mental health and quality of life depends on learning to make new good habits and to break old habits that have become harmful, or maybe they are always harmful. For instance, getting drunk saves some people's lives. If they didn't get drunk, they might kill themselves. Having a shot of heroin saves some people's lives. If they didn't have a shot of heroin, they might have cut their throat or run in front of a car or hung themselves. But getting drunk, becoming an alcoholic or a heroin addict, not a good habit. But it will become a habit if you do it often enough, because that's how some substances are addictive. That when you take them, a little bit that you can easily afford gives you great relief. But the next time it doesn't work quite so well because you've developed a bit of resistance or tolerance to it, so you have to have a bit more, bigger amount stop, and you're an addict. So very important to understand how important habits are, and to learn how to make habits and how to break habits. And we've got videos on that. Learn about quick switching. I learned that quite a few years ago, which is that if you have a few things that are harmless and that you enjoy doing, when you start to do the thing you're trying to stop doing, the habit you're trying to break, you suddenly quick switch to do that other thing instead. And then you can delay doing the bad habit for a while, and you can do a little bit less of it. And when you delay doing a bad habit and do a little bit less of it, it weakens the triggers and the electrical and chemical messages, and then you can delay and weaken them a bit more. For example, with smoking, we've got some powder medicine which I call Tobacco Fix, which has got 4 different medicines in it, and you carry it in your pocket And when you start to feel like a smoke, you whiz it out, drop the powder on your tongue, and powder on your tongue which you suck starts to work in 5 minutes. And after a while you get taste conditioning and it starts to work in seconds. So you can put off smoking for maybe 15 minutes. And then when you do smoke, you can smoke 3/4 of the cigarette and throw the last quarter away and smoke a bit less. And that weakens the tobacco addiction and habit a bit. And after a couple of weeks, you can cut your smoking by 25%. And as you cut the habit, your natural chemistry becomes more normal, and that makes delaying and reducing addiction habit easier still. So after 4 weeks, you're down to a half. It's no problem. You're down to a half. A lot of people will tell you, just go cold turkey. Ronald Reagan's wife said, just say no. Going cold turkey usually fails. Put yourself through hell, and a few people succeed, but most people relapse after 2 days or 3 days or 3 weeks or 3 months. You need to weaken and extinguish the habit and get your chemistry back to normal by increasingly delaying and reducing the habit. And the right powder medicine on your tongue is the fastest way to help you to reduce. But some people don't like taking medicines. So this powder dispenser is an alternative. Each dose of this powder is about 1 ml, and my favorite powder is vanilla powder. So if I've got this in my pocket, I'm not a smoker, but I like having a nice taste every now and then. I just whip it out, tap it, have a lovely taste. And if I'm trying to delay or reduce smoking or alcohol or heroin or whatever, I just focus on that lovely taste. And while you're focusing on that lovely taste, you can avoid doing the bad habit a bit. And when the lovely taste starts to fade, have another lovely taste, and then another. And sooner or later you'll do the bad habit, but you will have delayed it and you can do a bit less of it. And then you can keep on. You might rather do something else. You might rather do 20 push-ups before you smoke or before you have a drink, or run around the block twice or something. But breaking habits, you do that by delaying and reducing longer and longer and longer till you can start to miss it. When you start to miss it, it gets even weaker, and then you can quit. And that applies to nasty feelings. That applies to worry, anxiety. It applies a bit to depression and bipolar, although those are more difficult. It applies a bit to post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, or irritability, anger, violence disorder. Delay those habits and do a bit less of them by quick switching to something else, or powder medicine for your specific mental health issues and addiction, or powder medicine sorry, fruit powder with a lovely taste and no sugar and the fibre we need. So you can do that delay habit breaking with worry, anxiety, fear, sadness, loneliness, depression, anger. Because if you've got an anger problem, it's usually because at some time in the past, usually in your early childhood, things happened that made you angry so often that being angry, the triggers and the electrical and chemical message got stronger and stronger until being angry was very easily provoked, and it was very strong and it was very hard to stop, which causes one woman every 4 days in Australia to be killed by her partner or ex-partner. And for every one that's killed, there's dozens or 100 who are beaten physically or mentally because of irritability, anger, disorder. So learn to break those bad habits. After mental health, what helps us most to have a healthy, happy life is having enough good relationships and no bad relationships. Be a decent, fair, honest person. Selfish, unfair, dishonest people can't have good relationships. They sometimes cheat a bit and get something that they weren't entitled to, but they can't have good relationships, and they're going to have bad lives, and their children are going to have bad lives, and they're probably going to have a nasty divorce. Much better to be a good person and have good relationships. Our immune system is cells, antibodies and chemicals in every part of us that fight infections, allergies, inflammation, autoimmune diseases and cancers. People who die young, which is a tragedy, have usually had depressed immune systems. In my family, one mother died when her only child was 3. The mother died from tuberculosis. The people who had a weak immune system were much more likely to get tuberculosis. Another mother got cancer when she was 36. She had a weak immune system. Humans need good relationships because our genes and our chemistry developed over hundreds of thousands of years when humans lived in small groups of 30 to 150 people, the same people for their whole life, in nature, in the bush, in the forest, somewhere. They couldn't have less than 30 in the group because wild animals would get them. It's only in very recent times that humans have been the danger. It used to be the wild animals. Occasionally in Australia a dingo attacks a child, but very rare. So the group had at least 30 people, and they couldn't have more than 150 people in the group because there wouldn't be enough food within walking distance, because there weren't farms, there weren't factories, there weren't gardens. They just went out and picked what grew in nature, and if the group got too big, there wasn't enough within walking distance. So they lived in these groups for the whole, usually for the whole of their life. They lived very close, no brick walls. I can remember a long time ago driving over the Nullarbor Plain in Australia. Somewhere out in the middle in the desert, I came across a colony of Aboriginal people talking in language that I couldn't understand, and I could just see their huts. Their huts were bark huts, small bark huts, no privacy. Everybody knew everything, everything was happening. They lived very close. That's where our genes and our chemistry developed over hundreds of thousands of years. And living on your own in an apartment with brick walls is very recent, and our chemistry and our genes have not changed, have only changed very slightly, a little bit every 10,000 years. So we do much better if we have good relationships, close relationships. The kids in those groups thought they had 10 grandmas because every older lady treated them like they were their grandma. They thought they had 30 brothers and sisters because all the kids played together, worked together. And they knew there were old kids and middle-aged and intermediate kids and young kids, because there were kids of all ages everywhere. They weren't in a classroom where all 30 children were the same age. So, with your ancestors' genes and chemistry, have close friends, natural foods, drink water, and do a lot of walking, and you'll be healthy. You'll stay out of a wheelchair and out of a nursing home much longer. And understand that we're not solo persons. Each one of us is one link in a long chain of mothers and fathers, mums and dads. Before birth, while we're in our mummy's tummy, all our nutrition came through her blood. And her blood had hormones, female hormones, stress hormones, other hormones. And it might have had a lot of alcohol, it might have had heroin, it might have had other things. So when we were growing from a microscopic fertilized egg to a 3-kilo baby, we shared our chemistry with our mother. And then in the first most formative years, our bonding with our mother was the single most important factor. In fact, our bonding, the bonding between a mother and its child, a child and its mother, most of all in the first year, then the second year, then the third year, is the most important thing in that person's whole life. Because in those early, closely bonded years, we develop the two most important things in our life, which is our feeling habits. Are they mostly happy, smiling, or is there a lot of anxiety, worry, fear, loneliness, sadness, irritability, anger? Our feeling habits develop most of all in the first year of our life, and then second most of all in the second year of our life, and then probably the third most in the third year of our life, while we're bonded to our mother. And the mothering she gave us depended a lot on the mothering her mother gave her, which depended on the mothering her mother got from her great-grandmother. So think about bonding, so important. And during that 2 or 3 year of very close infant-mother bonding, how experienced was she? What facilities, conveniences and support did she have? What were her strengths and weaknesses? What mothering did she get? And also realize that 95% of addictions are late-stage mental illness. It's far harder to quit an addiction, and relapses are far more common if you don't find the cause of an addiction. And in 95% of addicts that I saw, the cause was mental health issues, usually 2 or 3 or 4. I still remember one woman addict who was managing a brothel, and she had 5 serious mental health disorders. So we need to find and understand and fix mental illnesses if we're going to stop the addictions, the upper addictions with tobacco, nicotine, ice, ecstasy, cocaine, and ecstasy, MDMA. So the upper addictions, the downer addictions of alcohol, addictive medicines, heroin, addictive painkillers, and the smokehead. Sorry, my memory's not that good. Must understand that almost every person with an addiction problem has multiple serious mental health problems and is very unlikely to have a normal, healthy life unless their mental health is fixed at the same time as their addiction is fixed. Another very important thing to know is that suppressing bad stuff doesn't fix it. When you suppress something nasty, whether it's a feeling you've got or the fact that a family member, while drunk, killed someone, run over them in the car, it's best for everybody to know, not to talk about it all the time, but to know the bad things, to be aware of the bad feelings, to be aware of the bad thoughts, to be aware of the bad tragedies in your life and family members' life, because suppressing them just pushes them into the back of your mind. In the back of your mind, they still trouble you, and you don't know why you're troubled. Why am I depressed? Why do I have panic attacks? Every now and then, just stop and try to feel what's going on into it. For only 10 or 15 minutes. Is there anxiety, worry, fear? Is there sadness? Is there loneliness? Is there irritability, anger? Because you're not going to get them fixed if you don't know what they are. If you've suppressed them, you'll still be suffering from them, but it'll be difficult to get them fixed if you don't know what they are. So every now and then, or recently, I got cut off TikTok because I mentioned a word which I won't say in case they cut me off again. But that word, people have to know about that. If they don't know about it, it's more likely to happen and to get worse. So suppressing things doesn't make them go away. Or if they go away, they're only very minor things, weren't major things. But anything that's really significant is not going away just because you suppressed it. One important thing that you should do if you have mental health problems that you don't understand, you don't know why you've got them, your doctors didn't work out why you've got them, your mother and your father don't know why you've got them, and your partner worries about them but they don't know why you've got them. Write down the worst things that you think could happen to you. What are the 3 worst things that you'd most hate to have happen to you that could happen to you? Because probably one or more of those 3 things is what's causing the mental health problem that you can't get rid of and you don't understand. And so just writing down, maybe once a fortnight, just write down the 3 worst things that you'd most hate to happen to you. And also sometimes write down the 3 things you most want. Because if you keep remembering what you want, you're much more likely to get it. People who don't know what they want have great difficulty getting what they want. It just has to be an accident for them. But if you know what you want, you're much more likely to get it. And if you keep on reminding yourself, I mean, some things you want, it's going to take you a year or 3 years or 5 years to get it, but you want it, you'll keep on focusing it and you'll keep on doing things that'll get you a bit closer and stopping doing things that'll stop you from getting what you want. So write down the 3 things you most want. Breathing, steady breathing. Your breathing and your emotions are very closely connected. If something sudden bad happens, you gasp and you hold your breath. And some people crash, faint, because they breathe too much. They have hyperventilation. And steady breathing is a great help for calming you and relaxing you. Yeah, steady breathing is something you should practice. Practice it when you're sitting there daydreaming. Practice it when you're driving the car and you come to the lights and you stop because the light's red. Anywhere, everywhere, just practice breathing steadily, especially when you're trying to go to sleep. If you notice your breathing just before you go to sleep, you'll find it gets very even. And when it gets very even, you go to sleep. So that's one way to help you to go to sleep. And of course, steady breathing is a very important part of meditation. Most successful long-term meditators focus on breathing steadily. And the people who would most benefit from meditation often can't learn it because they're so agitated and upset. But you can learn to breathe steadily. And once you get good enough at breathing steadily, you'll be able to start to meditate. Rewards. Rewards. Never hear mental health workers talking about rewards, but rewards are very important. Every time you do something good, congratulate yourself. Ha! I did that. That was good. That was good. And smile. And if every time you do that thing, you congratulate yourself and you smile and you laugh a bit to yourself, it'll become a habit. It'll be much easier for you to do that good thing. Don't reward yourself with a cigarette or a whiskey or some fattening chips or foods or something. Nothing harmful. Congratulate yourself. Maybe do something harmless that's a reward, or even get one of our fruit powder dispensers and give yourself a lovely taste every time you do something good, or every time you don't do something bad. Reward yourself. Rewards, very important. Facial expression is very important. The look on your face or on their face tells you what's going on inside their body. I mean, a few people have had a rough childhood and have learnt not to show what's on their face, but most of us, you just have to look at our face, or we look at ourselves in the mirror and we know what we're feeling, how we're feeling. But what you need to know too is that what's happening in you causes your facial expression, but your facial expression causes what's happening within you. So if you're not feeling very good, smile and you'll start to feel better. And smile often. Reward yourself every time you smile and make it a habit, and your life is going to get better. You're going to feel better and you're going to be healthier because your immune system is stronger, because when you smile you produce more endorphins, feel-good chemicals that manage your immune system. Get healthy, happy and strong by finding and being your true natural self. Unfortunately, things can happen to us in childhood or in our teens or in a marriage or in a business relationship that force us to not be ourselves. And when we're not being ourselves, we get into situations and relationships that don't work very well. So if a lot of your things are not working very well, your relationships are not working very well, what the things that you do don't work very well, ask yourself, am I being my true natural self? What do I really feel? What do I really want? What do I really not like? What am I really not good at? Assess yourself accurately once a fortnight and get happy and strong by gradually becoming your true natural self. Become a good communicator. Communication is very important. I'm getting deaf in my old age, and that's a problem. I go to lectures and I can't quite hear what they're saying, and I'm very interested, but I don't get it. And I can be quite close to family or friends, and I have to ask them to repeat, because I'm getting deaf, I'm getting forgetful, and I forget to put my hearing aids in. In the last 3 lectures I've been to, the first 2 I forgot and didn't really benefit much from the lectures, but the 3rd one I made damn sure I put my hearing aids in and I heard, and it was good. Well, I think that's enough for one go for a very old guy. I'm sorry that I have so many people following, usually between 1,000 and 2,000 each time, 4 times a week. I had little communication with someone in Africa today, but I just can't do that, partly because I usually get the technology mixed up, and partly because I've got too much to do. I've got a couple of wonderful tools coming up, but I've got to just work on them. I hope you'll know about them within a couple of months. But I do want to know as much as I can from you, so please send me your comments, questions and criticisms, how we could do things better, through the platform that you watch this live streaming. We do it on TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Facebook and Instagram, but the last twice I've had difficulty connecting with Facebook and Instagram, a technical problem that my tech guy is going to help me with. He's just come back from doing a course in New York, so we'll get a bit better with the technology in the next week or 2. But or alternatively, email me. My email for this is healthestuff@gmail.com, healthestuff@gmail.com, spelt as it sounds. But if you can't remember that, just go to our short website, which is smilefixit.com, smilefixit.com, FIXIT, and the email address is there. And after I finish each session, and again the next morning, I go through all the comments and questions and everything and try to respond to as many as I can. Some I can't communicate with if they're not following me, because the technology doesn't allow it. But yeah, and I do the live streaming for about an hour at 7 o'clock on Wednesday evening, Friday and Saturday evening, and 9 a.m. Sunday morning Perth time, which is 7 which is 9 p.m. Sydney and Melbourne time, and I switched the Sunday 7 p.m. to Sunday 9 a.m. to make it at a more usable hour in the Northern Hemisphere, because sometimes almost half our viewers are in the Northern Hemisphere, and 7 p.m. Perth time is 7 a.m. New York time and 4 a.m. LA time and God knows what London time. So, and Sweden and Norway, where we also have followers. So I may eventually make 2 of the sessions, morning and 2 evening. Okay, thank you. Bye.